Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a spectacular Monday. The Final Four is set. We will dive into the incredible UConn-Duke conclusion. That's one of the most iconic already in the history of the NCAA tournament. Michigan dominates. Arizona also continues to roll. Congrats to the Fighting Illini. That is your Final Four. Big Ten dominating. What does that tell us, if anything? Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer has said that the Rooney Rule violates Florida state law. I'm going to interview him. We talked to him on Clay and Buck, but I'm going to kind of take you into what I believe the story is there. The latest on Iran, Rick Barnes and what he's meant to Tennessee, even as the Vols fall short yet again of having made the Final Four. Blue Sky is collapsing. Chambliss is going to be back at Ole Miss, and ICE and TSA, Tiger Woods, the mess that was his latest DUI allegation, all that and more. But we begin with one of the most iconic endings in the history of the NCAA tournament. I was sitting on my couch like many of you. My jaw dropped. For those of you who don't know, Duke was out to a 19-point lead, had pretty much control of this game with a 2-point lead with 10 seconds left inbounding the basketball. And they inbound the basketball. Caden Boozer is near midcourt. There is wide open, two guys from Duke underneath the basket. If he completes the pass, either they run out the clock or they go ahead and lay it in to go up 4, and the game is over, and there's very little time left. Instead, as he attempts to pass the basketball, ball is tipped, and UConn is able to get possession of it, and then they toss it to Braylon Mullins, freshman from Indiana, who rises up basically from the logo, completely drains the jumper. 0.4 seconds after the commercial break, they put on the clock, and UConn stages an improbable, incredible, unbelievable comeback to beat Duke by 1. To me, this is the reverse Leitner. And there is a certain element of symmetry here because Grant Hill, who threw the pass to Christian Leitner back in the day, was on the court side calling the game that was so incredibly iconic now. He is involved in throwing the pass to Christian Leitner to beat Kentucky in one of the greatest endings, unless you're a Kentucky fan, in the history of the NCAA tournament. And then he is there live on the air calling alongside of Bill Raftery and Ian Eagle that incredible ending where if you saw the video of Raftery and Grant Hill, Raftery, who's an absolute play-by-play legend, 82 years old, it looks like he's going to stroke out as he's watching this live courtside. A little bit of an aside, Raftery's one of the most awesome guys that is in sports in general. And I'll give you a funny, I don't think this has ever been public. People love Raftery so much at Fox Sports. Now, he's beloved across so many different places. They would bring him to the preseason football, this is 100% true, to the preseason football meetings at Fox Sports just to come and hang out at the bar. This is awesome for those of you who have been. Fox does a college football and NFL preseason gathering in the LA area, and he was so awesome and so popular that they would sometimes bring him to the football gatherings just so he could come hang out at the bar after the daily meetings on the NFL and college football. That's how much everybody loves the guy. So he is just an awesome, awesome dude. And that game, I mean, it's everything that we love about sports. If you are a Duke fan, overtime, karma, generally speaking, evens itself out. Right? Great outcomes and awful outcomes over time even themselves out. It may take decades, as was the case here, but it feels to me like this was a reverse Leitner for those of us who remember that early 1990s incredible shot that Christian Leitner hit to eliminate Kentucky back in the day, Rick Pitino versus Coach K. And now for Dan Hurley to get that win and be able to advance. Credit, by the way, to Dan Zakrzewski. Really great questions that he asked of Dan Hurley and also of Tom Izzo with that quad of incredibly talented coaches that was taking place in Washington, D.C. But the result is UConn advances and provides some drama in what otherwise in the Elite Eight was not a particularly dramatic collection of games. Arizona goes on to win fairly comfortably, come back against Purdue and advance to the Final Four. We also had Illinois advance, and then Michigan just obliterated Tennessee in a epic beatdown status. So Michigan versus Arizona, Illinois versus UConn is your Final Four, with those games taking place on Saturday. I will be watching, as many of you will be watching. Now, as a result, I was saddened by Michigan dominating, destroying, obliterating, whatever word you want to use, the University of Tennessee in the Elite Eight. It was the third straight year that Tennessee has lost in the Elite Eight under Rick Barnes. Year one, with the loss to, I'm going to run through them in order. Most recently here, the loss to Michigan. Last year, we had the loss to Houston. The year before that, we had the loss to Purdue. So Purdue, Houston, and now Michigan, boom, boom, boom. All number one seeds. Purdue and Houston both advanced to the national championship game as the runner-up. I think whoever wins, personally, the Michigan-Arizona game on Saturday is going to end up winning the national championship, because I think that side of the bracket is going to be stronger than the other side of the bracket. Obviously, Illinois or UConn are going to advance on the other side. Context here. Rick Barnes is one of the greatest coaches in the history of college basketball. He's going to go over 900 wins. Our Trey Wallace asked him after the game, hey, are you coming back for another season? He 100% said he was. We're taping this in the morning on Monday, by the way. But as I am talking to you, Justin Gainey, the associate head coach of Tennessee, has accepted the job at NC State. Really great hire for them there. But Rick Barnes will be remaking a bit his staff and bringing in somewhat of a new coach as a result. Having said how disappointing it is to lose in the Elite Eight 3 straight years, Tennessee had been to one Elite Eight under Bruce Pearl before Rick Barnes came to Tennessee. He has now been to 3 straight Elite Eights. No one in college basketball has been to more Elite Eights in a row than Tennessee has right now. So the last 3 years, Rick Barnes, who a lot of people criticize for not having won a national championship and only been to one Final Four, I think he has shed forever the moniker of regular season Rick, which was a sort of an attack that usually he's way better in the regular season than he is in the postseason. Having said that, I think Tennessee's administration and I think Tennessee's overall boosters have to decide, are we willing to go all in on Rick Barnes and Tennessee putting together a team that is capable of winning a championship? There have been a lot of talented players on those Elite Eight teams, but Tennessee was not the best team in college basketball, or even arguably one of the 2 or 3 necessarily best teams. In order to win at a high level now, you're going to have to spend a lot of money, and the money's going to have to be allocated in a way that leads to good results, because you can spend a lot of money. Look at Kentucky this season and not have overall the results that you would anticipate relative to the amount of dollars that are being spent. But I think Rick Barnes at this point at Tennessee has demonstrated he is a top 10 coach for sure, and that Tennessee is a top 10 program and is the best college basketball program in the country to have never been to a Final Four. So at this point in time, I think the question is quite clear for Tennessee. Are they willing to pay the dollars that they need to pay in order to give Rick Barnes a chance to win a championship? And to do so for Rick Barnes, who I believe is 71 or 72 years old, who knows how many more years he is going to coach. I mean, I think you got to put the over-under at 3, maybe 4 on the high end. He seems like he's in really good shape, but how many guys over the age of 70 are going to keep going? Rick Pitino obviously is. Tom Izzo is. There's some guys in that camp, and Kelvin Sampson, they're all up there in advanced age relative to other coaches. So we'll just see how long they can keep doing it. But I do think Rick Barnes at Tennessee is, to me, one of the greatest coaches in the history of college football. He's soon going to go over 900 career wins. I don't think he'll coach long enough to get over 1,000 career wins, but maybe. I think Tennessee needs to put every single aspect behind him that they can to see whether he can knock down that door, go to the Final Four, and actually go on and win a championship. Big Ten. Credit to the Big Ten. A lot of people have said, what is the impact of NIL going to be? How is it going to change the overall balance of power? Changed everything, it appears, in college football. Back-to-back years, Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana have won national championships in football. 3 straight years, 3 different teams in the Big Ten have won championships. I don't think you can say that that is anything other than NIL leveling the playing field and more money being spent on high-quality players by the Big Ten schools now. But the Big Ten as a conference has not won a national title in basketball since 2000. That's going to stun a lot of people. It's a crazy stat. I believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Michigan State won the national title with Tom Izzo in 2000, beating the Florida Gators, if I remember correctly. They have not won, the Big Ten has not as a conference, a national title since then in 26 years. So you've got Michigan going up against Arizona on one side, Illinois going up against UConn on the other side. 2 of the Final 4 schools are from the Big Ten. 4 of the 8 Elite 8 teams were from the Big Ten. And I believe I'm correct in this, the Big Ten went 5-0 against SEC teams. Now, a bunch of those games were very, very close. Iowa beat Florida. Nebraska beat Vanderbilt. And I know that Michigan beat Alabama and Michigan beat Tennessee. There is one more in there that I am not thinking of off the top of my head, but 5-0, if I'm not mistaken, all head-to-head Big Ten in the SEC. Okay, 3 of those games were very close, and then Michigan has dominated Tennessee and pulled away pretty comfortably from Alabama after a very close first half. Can they get to the next level and actually win a championship or not? Certainly my Michigan grad wife hopes the answer is yes, but I actually think the national championship is going to come down to Michigan against Arizona, and we will see how that plays out. But this is certainly the best chance in a long time the Big Ten, in terms of raw numbers, has had to win its first national title since the year 2000. Several other stories that are out there. Tiger Woods. I talked about this on Friday on multiple Fox News shows. I don't know if we've gotten any more details about the Tiger Woods drive. He was not drunk, but he refused to take a urine test because obviously the authorities there in the Jupiter, Florida area, Martin County, I believe, in Florida, felt like he was under the influence of something. And I will just say, having seen that Range Rover flipped over on a 2-lane road, we're very lucky that Tiger didn't hurt himself or someone else. But it's hard to flip a Range Rover unless you are driving at a crazy rate of speed and unless you are really kind of yanking that wheel. Not try to brag here. I drive a Range Rover. At no point in time have I ever felt like I was remotely close to tipping this thing. It is a really well-built vehicle in terms of its ability to handle, and I think the evidence is that Tiger was driving way too fast and that he was under the influence of substances. Now, in 2021, we had the Tiger Woods accident where he severely injured himself. We didn't hardly know if he was going to be able to play golf again, rolling his vehicle in the LA area on his way at that point in time to an early morning event at a LA area golf course. And I just look at this and I say a couple of things. One, at this point, there's no way Tiger Woods should be driving. He's a billionaire. He has resources that most could never dream of in order to drive a vehicle for him. I understand there's probably a control element. He likes risk. He likes challenge. The fact that he's not able to compete in golf anymore means that he's always looking for that next high. This is my analysis of what's going on. And he gets it on some level from driving. But I do think that there is a strong argument that someone else driving his car for him would make far more sense and maybe required in the wake of whatever disposition comes from this DUI. I also think in general, and I said this on the show, I am a dad of 3 boys, as you guys know. And one of the things that I love most is watching them grow up and compete in their sports. We know that Charlie Woods, the son of Tiger Woods, a very talented golfer, and we've seen Tiger work with him as a caddy and start to just be involved with his son in his golf life. I would say to Tiger, unlikely that he's going to watch this at all, but think about your own life. One of the great moments in sports, in my opinion, is the Sunday of the U.S. Open, which is always on Father's Day weekend, when oftentimes dad is standing on the 18th green waiting to embrace his son as he finishes his round of golf, sometimes as he wins the U.S. Open. We saw with Earl Woods, and certainly with Tiger's mom as well, how often they were there on the 18th green. Tiger had a great relationship with his dad. Doesn't Tiger want that for his own son? He's 50 years old. His career in golf is cemented as one of the greatest of all time. He may never, and is likely never, going to surpass Jack Nicklaus for major wins. But he's the second greatest golfer at worst of all time. Best if you want to argue that he was even better, because the quality of play surrounding him, you can argue, was higher, right? That's an argument about the GOATs, which a lot of us enjoy on a day-to-day basis or whatnot in the world of sports. What I would say is, don't you want to now be for your son what your dad was for you when it comes to being there for him as he comes off the course? If you do, then you need to make better decisions in your life. You need to take less risk, and you need to try to get yourself back to the best condition that you can be. Here's the downside. I think Tiger has put his body through so much from a physical perspective that we don't think of golfers as guys who necessarily put their body through a rigorous schedule, but Tiger pushed his body, has had tons of surgeries, and certainly when you look at the injuries that he had in the 2021 car accident, I mean, he has just put himself through absolute hell. And it may be the case that he feels like he has to take pain pills regularly to be able to just get through the day. And for any of you out there that have dealt with consistent pain, aches, back issues, whatever it might be, I think you guys can understand why he might have, I'm just saying why he might have on some level become addicted to pain pills and feel like he has to be on them all the time in order to go about his day-to-day life. I hope that's not true, but those pills can be incredibly addictive for people who are dealing with regular pain. And it is the case, sadly, that a lot of people come to the conclusion that they cannot go about their day-to-day life because they're in such pain without the incredible power of that pain through the pain pills. And so I wonder on some level whether that might be the issue at play. So we want Tiger to get better, certainly. By the way, the fifth Big Ten game that I did not remember was Purdue winning a close game against Texas. So they won buzzer beaters, basically Nebraska against Vanderbilt, Purdue against Texas, and Iowa against Florida. and then dominant performances from Michigan against both Alabama and Tennessee writ large. Iran. Much easy to go from Purdue and how they got the win against Texas to Iran. As I'm talking to you on Monday morning, I think the story in Iran is one of American complete dominance. And I actually believe much of the media coverage has been far too focused on the negative sides of the situation in Iran. Now, it remains to be seen how exactly we are going to wrap up the situation in Iran, and that is certainly its own challenge. But the stock market has come down, the price of oil and gas has gone up. I think this will be resolved by May 1st. I've been making this prediction for some time. Why do I say May 1st? As a general rule, the price of oil and gas, that is the gallon of gas that you put into your tank, typically rises during the summer driving season. Why? They change the composition of oil and gas to be a little bit more efficient. Way more people are on the road. There is a higher demand for oil and gas during the summer because a lot of people drive on their vacations. There's more travel. And so typically you will see the overall price of oil and gas rise during the Memorial Day driving season through Labor Day. What I believe is that they want to get everything wrapped up in Iran by May 1st. Why? Because if they get everything wrapped up in Iran by May 1st, prices will decline throughout the month of May. And then when they start to tick back up at the end of the summer driving season, they're not going to go to a much higher level. They'll probably be somewhat similar to what they are now during the summer driving season. And then after Labor Day, as everybody starts to get those ballots and as everybody starts to assess, hey, what is the overall state of the United States economy? Post Labor Day, there's going to be I think, a decline of the overall price of oil and gas back to where it was likely before this situation in Iran arose. Okay, that is my prediction. Can you be wrong about those things? Yes, but I think that's kind of the timeline that I would see as the most likely when it comes to how this is all going to play out. Within that construct, the question is, how do we get Iran in some way to a similar situation to what's going on in Venezuela? Everything in Venezuela is going great. In particular, Delcy Rodriguez is working well, the current leader of Venezuela, with the United States. Overall oil and gas production has increased by around 50% since we deposed Maduro. And the overall production of oil and gas means there's more oil and gas coming on the marketplace. Freedom is increasing in Venezuela, and overall crime rates have gone down in Venezuela. It has been a very successful operation there. Simultaneously, Cuba's collapsing because they don't have oil and gas because other countries aren't willing to give Cuba oil and gas for reduced rates. That is a huge and seismic impact 90 miles south of the United States. So what is going to happen in Iran? Why do I mention Venezuela? Because to me, the goal here is to find a Delcy Rodriguez-like leader that we feel like we can work with in Iran that will stabilize the Middle East more significantly than it was before. I think it's important here. Very few people talk about it. So far, loss of life, 13 people. I wish no one had died at all. But if you compare that to other past military operations, this is one of the most effective, one of the least destructive in terms of impact on the United States for both men and materiel that has ever existed in the history of modern warfare. More effective than Operation Desert Storm, for those of you who remember that. More effective than when we went into Panama. More effective, certainly, than anything with Iraq 2.0 so far. So I think that our military deserves immense praise, and so does the leadership for how this has carried itself out so far. Price of oil and gas due to the Strait of Hormuz has gone up, but it is inevitable, I believe, that ultimately Strait of Hormuz is going to be cleared. Iran has to be able to sell oil and gas, or the entire country doesn't work as an economic, not that it works very well economically now, but the only real money that's coming into Iran as we speak is from oil and gas. If they are not able to transit the oil and gas down the Strait of Hormuz, then basically the entire country doesn't exist economically. That means that we're going to get some form of resolution, I believe, there, which will make the oil and gas cost ultimately lower going forward than they were now. There have been reports that the danger of Iran and what they might do in the Middle East has led to a tax effectively on oil and gas that has existed for a very long time. And when we remove that oil and gas, which is embedded into the cost of virtually everything in the world, will lead to an overall decrease there. And so I think this is ultimately going to end up working out well. I don't know. Could we seize Karj Island? Yes. Could we see some areas of the Strait of Hormuz, the land there? Yes, I think we could. But I trust President Trump, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio to manage this well, J.D. Vance as well. All of those things. Okay. Credit. I believe we talked about this on the Monday edition of the show. President Trump, citing his emergency authority, has begun to pay TSA agents. When I looked this morning before I sat down to do this show, the overall the wait times at airports had collapsed. I really do believe that President Trump got the idea to drive ICE into the airports, partly based on Linda from Arizona, who called into our radio show. I then went on Fox News and talked about it. President Trump signed a hat for Linda for Arizona, sent it to the House here, where we have now forwarded that baseball cap on to Linda from Arizona. But the ICE agents have been very helpful to the TSA agents, who will now get paid, and I think things will go much better inside of airports than they have. The wait times at places like Houston, New York City, Atlanta, and New Orleans, which were what I saw as the four worst when it came to wait times, seem to have gotten immensely better. Ole Miss quarterback Trinity Chambliss is on his way back to Ole Miss. The ongoing coverage of the storylines there. The Mississippi Supreme Court has decided that the NCAA did not have the ability to restrict his play. So Trinidad Chambliss will be back at Ole Miss on the sideline for the 2026 season. That is a big win for Ole Miss football fans and for those of us out there who just enjoyed watching him play. A great story from, was it Ferris State? Am I right that that's where he played before? To come to Ole Miss and have the success that he has. Trinidad Chambliss will be eligible to play in 2026 for Ole Miss, for those of you out there that, like me, are diehard college football fans. Finally, Blue Sky, which I have spent no time on at all, but the data reflects only about 600,000 people are active on Blue Sky on any given day. That is a tiny pinprick of the overall population, even of social media. That it is dying. Left-wingers sitting around and talking with each other is incredibly boring. And as a result, I think that it is completely collapsing. Finally, one positive story that I want to share. The Olympics has made the decision that they are no longer going to allow men pretending to be women to compete in the Olympics, which are happening in LA in 2028. I think this world result is a direct result of President Trump's victory and the fact that he banned men and women's sports. This is a great example of the IOC knowing that this was the wrong result and that men have been able to win gold medals, and that was the wrong result. They're going to cheek swab people and just determine whether they are men or women for purposes of competition. No one is banned. If you cheek swab as a man, guess what? you can still try and compete in the Olympics. And if you cheek swab as a woman, guess what? You're going to compete as a woman. This is why we separate men's and women's sports. I can't believe that OutKick and myself are the only people in sports that have been arguing on this issue for years now. We are being vindicated. I don't know that I talked a ton about the Rooney Rule, but I'm going to talk about that on the OutKick show, which is on Wednesday. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer has said that the Rooney Rule violates Florida state civil rights law, and I think it's a no-brainer. I've been arguing for years that it doesn't make sense. Look, the NFL is willing to do whatever it takes, oftentimes meaning employ people with awful criminal histories if they make it more likely that a team's going to win a championship. Do you think that 32 NFL owners are willing to pay hundreds of millions of dollars a year in salaries, as they are, to a majority black league and play black players at every position under the sun if it makes it more likely that their team will win, but that they're simultaneously discriminating against black coaching candidates? It just doesn't make any sense. And so the idea that, oh, you have to interview these individuals and we're going to award draft picks based on the race of different coaches, it's absurd. The NFL is the ultimate meritocracy. In a meritocracy, the best man or woman wins, period, has the most success, period. The idea that the NFL has been engaged in the Rooney Rule, which I believe violates not only Florida law, but also the Supreme Court would hold violates the law of the nation. I think this is another example, much like the IOC, where people know that what they were doing was wrong, but as a result of Trump's election, they're willing to change the law, but they say, oh, this is because of him. This is not something that we agree with. This is just something we have to do because of who the president is and now because of who the Attorney General of Florida is. I think James Uthmeyer is right, and the NFL Rooney Rule needs to end up on the dumpster fire. It needs to be eliminated. All right. There's a ton of stuff happening in today's show. Encourage you to watch the OutKick show with me on Wednesday on FS1 about 6 p.m. Eastern. That's happening every single week. I'll be live with Clay and Buck all week. Lots of good stuff coming. Appreciate all of you. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. This is OutKick, the show, and I am Clay Travis. I will see you guys soon.